in Monet database, if we want to know what functions can be used as window functions, then we have to run this statement. This statement will use system table sys.functions, but it will only ask for functions of type 6, because only these functions can be used as window functions. So I will run this and we will get a list of functions. If for a moment we jump here to this web page, we will see that these functions can be divided into 4 groups. So we have aggregate functions, we have statistical aggregate functions, we have ranking and distribution functions, and we have value functions. In this video, we will talk about aggregate functions and statistical aggregate functions. But first, we will create one sample table. So we will go back, and I will create a table that will have 2 columns. First one will be of char data type, and the other one will be an integer. And then we will fill this table with some data. And at the end, we can see how our table looks like. So I will run this statement here, and this is our table. I will now clear my screen. First, we will see that we can use partitioning, ordering, and training with aggregate functions. So we can use all of the parts of a window with aggregate functions. So if I run this statement, I will get the correct result. Next, I will give you an example for classical aggregate functions, but first I will show you again my sample table, and then we will run this other statement. Inside of this statement, we can see that we are using sum, max, min, average, and prod functions, and we will define our window here at the bottom. So we are using window definition in order to have our statement short, and our window is defined with empty parentheses. That means that we will aggregate all of the values from the number column. So if we run this, we will see what is the sum of our column, what is maximum value, minimum value, what is average value, and what is the product of numbers from number column. Beside these classical aggregations, we can also use 2 special functions. Those are list tag and group concat, and we will use them to concatenate strings from this part column, and this will be our result. We are using different delimiters for list tag function and for group concat functions, but we can see that the results are similar. I will now clear my screen. I will show you again my sample table, and then we will talk about usage of aggregate functions. Here is one example where we are using aggregate function to calculate running total. In this case, we are calculating consecutive summation from numbers from the number column. So this result is bigger in each row, because in each row it will add another number from number column to its result. We can also use aggregate functions for calculating moving aggregations. Here we have moving average, and in this example we are using current row and the previous number as frame, and then we are calculating an average for those 2 numbers. So the average for 8 and 6 is 7, but the average for 6 and 3 is 4.5. Now, window functions can be only used inside of select and order clauses, and that is because we have to get all of the rows from our query in order then to apply window function on those rows. And here is one example where we are using window function in order by clause. So we can use window function to create a column, and then we can sort our rows by that column. So when we run this, our values will now be sorted by a column created with a window function. I will now clean my screen. I will now talk about similarities and differences between group by and window functions. I will again jump to this web page, and here on this left image we can see how group by works. Group by can see all of the detailed rows, but only inside of one group, and it can do all of the calculations with those rows. But on the other side, if after grouping we apply a window function, so we are looking now at the image on the right side, In that case, window function cannot see any more detailed rows because they are grouped. It can only see aggregations for each group. But window function is special because it can see all of the groups at the same time, while group by was able to see only one group. We'll now jump again here to terminal. I will show you again my sample table, and then we will create one statement that will group our values. So we will group everything into two groups. So this is grouping. We transform detailed rows into these two groups. So now we only see these totals, and now we can apply window function on these groups. So I will apply one window function to calculate running total, and this is the result of window function. Now it is possible to have both. Is it possible to see at the same time and details and totals? Well, that is possible, but only with window functions. If we preserve our original column, so if we use a statement like this one, this time we have our original column, but we also have aggregation calculated with window function. In that case, we would get both detail values, they're here, and we also have our aggregation. So in the same row, we have details and totals, so we can compare them. If we divide these columns number and total, we can calculate what is the share of detail in a whole. So if we run this, we can see that one here is 10% of 10. Similar to that, 6 is 60% of 10, and so on. So we can calculate the share. So window functions are great for such analytic calculations. I will now clear my screen. At the end, we will see how we can use statistical aggregation functions with a window. I will run this statement here, and here we will calculate all of the statistical aggregation functions. I will run it, and this would be our result.